The Supreme Court agreeing to hear Donald Trump's claim that he's immune to prosecution on federal charges of attempting to overturn the 2020 election. That puts his trial on hold, serving the former president's strategy of pushing his trials past the presidential election. Chief Washington correspondent John Carl starts us off. Good morning, John.
Good morning, George. In deciding to take up the issue of presidential immunity, the Supreme Court has effectively delayed the most far-reaching criminal case against Donald Trump, raising the real possibility that the trial in that case could be pushed back to late summer or fall, or possibly until after the presidential election. The Supreme Court is now on track to weigh in on a claim Donald Trump has made both in the courtroom and on the campaign trail.
The president has to have immunity.
There is nothing more important to a presidency than immunity.
Donald Trump's claim of absolute immunity is central to his defense against the allegation that he illegally tried to overturn the 2020 election in an effort that culminated in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. The trial in that case, brought by special counsel Jack Smith, was originally scheduled to start next week, but is now on hold as the Supreme Court considers Trump's immunity claims. The High Court has scheduled oral arguments in the case for late April, with a decision likely not coming until several weeks after that, possibly in June. Whether or not the Supreme Court agrees with Trump's claim that a president, even a former president, is immune from criminal prosecution for virtually anything done while in office, the delay is already something of a Trump victory, raising the real possibility that the trial could be pushed back until after the presidential election. Earlier this month, a federal appeals court unanimously rejected Trump's immunity claims, ruling that his, quote, stance would collapse our system of separated powers, adding, "We cannot accept that the office of the presidency places its former occupants above the law for all time thereafter." With this delay, even if the trial is able to happen before the election, it would likely take place against the backdrop of the political conventions later in the summer or in the heat of the fall campaign, possibly, George, after voters in several states have already started casting their ballots.
And John, meantime, another judge in Illinois has thrown Donald Trump off the ballot, but that's not likely to hold for long.
No, this is the third state to make such a move, but the Supreme Court has heard arguments on this, and we're expecting their decision any day now. That decision will affect all of this, and the justices sure seemed skeptical with the idea that Trump could be thrown off the ballot.
John Carl, thanks very much. It's been our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams. Let's go to the Supreme Court. Ultimately, this question of immunity is not likely to be a close call. They're going to rule against Donald Trump there, so why take it?
Because they want to put their stamp on it, because the U.S. Supreme Court wants to weigh in on an incredibly important question. But look, this really is all about the clock. I mean, this has always been about the clock. I think Donald Trump and his legal team know they're not going to win the argument that he is completely immune, that the president has complete and total immunity. The question is, when do they decide that? And now this is a really big win for Donald Trump if you look at his effort as an effort to delay.
Well, that gets to my second question. Why take 16 days to decide this? Why schedule arguments 2 months from now?
The 16 days, I think, shows that there was some dissent within the justices about what to do here. And yeah, they could have expedited it even more. Look, the easiest way to deal with moving it forward would have been to say, as they do in most cases, we're not going to hear it, right? The appellate court has ruled on this. We're going to simply say this is not a case that the Supreme Court is going to weigh in on, and the appellate court decision would have stood against Donald Trump. The court not saying that, and then also not moving it quite as quickly as they could have. And so I now think it's very unlikely that you're going to see this trial.
Well, one final question, though. What could the judge, assume that he's not immune, schedule the trial for November 8th? And even if Donald Trump wins, he still has to face trial.
That's like one of these questions professors ask in a class, right? It's like,
well, answer it.
Yeah, it's like theoretically it's possible. Practically, there is absolutely no way the judge is going to schedule the trial for after the election. There's just no way. Because, by the way, I don't think the Department of Justice is going to allow the case to move forward even in the 60 days before the election. So I don't think any of that period becomes a realistic possibility, although theoretically it's possible.
Dan Abrams, thanks very much.
George, you've been covering politics for decades. cannot underscore how unprecedented all of this is.
Well, no, and the last time we saw something like this where it had such a major impact on the presidential election was Bush v. Gore in 2000. Of course, they stopped the counting of the votes in Florida, which ended up helping George W. Bush.
That's true. All right, George. Thank you. And Dan, appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.